Hall of Science. We have heard you on the air. That big antenna is doing just great. It looks wonderful. And thank you so much for changing your schedule and coming tonight rather than your normal night. Thanks to Steve for picking me up. You should see the dashboard of his car. Pretty miraculous. And those that have been watching us on APRS. I am delighted to be here from Southern California. Although I'm leaving tomorrow, I'm going to leave you with some nice cool air. And it could be colder this Sunday when we watch the game. That will be very fun. I always like to start off by knowing who is here, and I know we've got a podcast going on, so hi to everyone out there in computer land. But on the count of 3, I'd like to hear your call signs. This way you can be on the podcast as well. So as if you were trying to punch through a 20-meter pileup, and you've got people edging you out for that 360th country that you need badly. Let's hear your call signs. 1, 2, 3.
W2IRT.
Oh, now that's called a tail ender, W2IRT. He waits till everybody goes first and then he jumps in afterwards. Good job. Good job.
That's why he's got 2 minutes.
That's right. I have just returned from the Consumer Electronics Show, and I carried with me a AOR spectrum analyzer and a notepad to tell you what we have to look forward to when it comes to either more noise coming out of new modern computer stuff or new TVs or less noise. And I've got some notes, and I'll share you the good news, the bad news, and the intermediate news. We'll start off with intermediate news. How many have solar cells charging up whatever you're charging with solar cells? There has been no change in price, no change in the amount of current output, but everybody's looking to solar as that green type of renewable energy, but prices are about the same. For every $100, you'll get 1 amp of current at 12 volts. So we saw a lot of solar at the CES show in Las Vegas this past weekend. No change. Too bad. Good news. Good news. How many have ever been affected by television interference? TBI? Yeah. The good news is, a year from now, all the TVs are going to be going digital and will either be tied into the cable or satellite or to, and you get a $40 rebate, the new digital box. How many still have a pair of antennas up on the roof? Yeah. We enjoy that because that's how we tell for tropospheric ducting and sporadic E on 2 meters, right? Excuse me, on 6 meters and maybe 2 meters by watching channel 2 or channel 3. Well, those days are only here for about another 365 because television goes all digital in another year from now. So the good news is TBI, they won't know who it is. How many have had TBI problems again? Yeah, we know what it is. You put up that new 160-meter antenna to run all the way around the block on your neighbor's fences. You're on 160 meters for the first time. You got the kilowatt 922 turned on. You place your first CQ, and this is what you hear outside your house. Hey, knock it off! Open up the front door and confront that neighbor and say, are you getting the same interference? And then blame it on Steve. He hasn't been on the air yet for the next couple of hours. There you go. The bad news. The FCC has no sense of humor. The New Mexico Radio Club in Roswell applied for November Mike 5 UFO. Makes sense. Special vanity call sign. They said no, although it could be a legitimate call sign. November Mike or New Mexico 5 UFO was too early in the sequence to allocate it, and they said that without a smile. Yeah, what's the matter with them? I thought that would have been a good one. Good news for those of us that wear earphones a lot. Earbuds are coming out, noise canceling as well, and while they don't quite have ham radio DSP in them, we're going to see a lot of neat earphone capabilities for ham radio operators to plug them into our ears. Largest television at the CES show. Imagine causing TBI on a television measured diagonally 150 inches. Just think, when you cause TBI, you'll be able to see it like, oh my gosh, that's quite a picture. Anyway, the big TVs are coming out. And a new word. There's a new word we need to learn. The word is judder. Judder. That is on the new LCDs. When they pan and you see things go like that, they now have a new technology that gets rid of the judder. So I hope none of you are plagued with judder. Good news to keep us out of television sets. All of the cable manufacturers of interconnecting cables are going to double and triple coaxial type of grade on the cables. So we're going to see a lot less interference thanks to the cable industry really stepping forward. And there's something new for those of you that ever tried to attach a spaded terminal to a large hunk of wire, and you tried to solder it in a blowtorch, then you tried to crimp it, and then you just had to start all over again. Now they have one where you bare the copper, slides over, and 2 screws allow you to screw into that, and that's what they're using in the audio field, and they're pulling 50, 75 amps. Hey, that'll work well, so there you go. 3-dimensional television, 3D TV. Is that great? No, it was not. The 3D TV, again, red and green glasses, not quite. They had actually ones that were synchronized with left and right picture. 3D TV is not hit yet, but here's something that was a hit. Came from a CB company called Cobra. Anybody ever have a CB Cobra radio? Yeah. We now have it a little bit in ham radio, and it's called their digital voice recorder. It's now on a single chip, and we're going to see probably more of that in the ham radio industry, and that is DVR, where you press a button and you can make out that CQ call that came to you and you missed it the first time. Without having to ask for a repeat, just press that and it'll come through in your other earbud, and that's the digital voice recorder. Well, ham radio certainly had a big year throughout the country in handling emergency communications, and I know you had your share of everything back here for this last year where ham radio came through. As you know, Southern California went through some firestorms. 500,000 acres burned, and 500,000 clients were displaced, and there were ham radio excitements within what you were seeing on television at the firestorm. And one was with a group that I work with, and we were deployed to a small island 26 miles across from Southern California called Catalina Island. Not only did we have a firestorm, but the ham radio operators who were asked to work with the fire and the police and the medics were confronted with a horrible accident. Now I want you to know what you hear on the tape turns out better than at first accounted for. They indicated that there was 1 fatality and many that were critical. It turned out to be that the fatality really wasn't a fatality. That was a missed message that did not come through ham radio but another source, and that everybody lived. But here was that operator driving down the road, working with the fire department, relaying messages, and listen to her first call indicating that something major had happened.
And it's 50 yards south of Falls Canyon on Avalon Canyon Drive.
So, a school bus on its side. This came from a young lady, ham radio operator. She'd only been a ham for about 6 months, and she was helping with the fire communications, and they came across this school bus on its side.
We have received a report of a car crash at Avalon Canyon Drive at Falls Canyon Road. Can we have a fire come out here? Can we have the fire department come out and check this out, please?
Now, a lot of our communications were among radio operators that were not familiar with the area. And one of the pieces of equipment, I know we had this here a couple of years ago, but this is a new version, is called the GeoSat, and they've been working closely with Kenwood Corporation and the Kenwood D5. And if you saw me the other day squawking as a sailboat while going down one of your roads, that was indeed me. But this is an APRS system that allows us to accurately track not only where we are by our latitude and longitude on the maps, but also see other radio operators by their call sign appear on the map. And there's one here, NY3H-2. Are they here in the room, NY3H? This is probably from Ham Radio University, but I'm going to pass this one around. I would never do this in California because I'd never see it, but here in New York, not a problem. Try not to touch the screen and it'll stay in the map. If it should jump out of the mapping function, I don't know, shake it or do something. But that is tied into APRS and mapping, and that's one of the things that we used during the firestorms to see where our Red Cross communicators were by their call sign. And if you look carefully, it should be a little blue circle and one of your operators on there.
Be advised, emergency services have been notified, and fire and paramedics are en route to Avalon Canyon and Falls Canyon Road.
Now, that was the fire department. That was a regular fire department dispatcher working alongside the ham, and we recorded their side of the conversation. So when you hear his voice, that's the actual fire department comms. Probably not supposed to retransmit it here on the air, but we're doing it anyway. And the hams come in there. So now we got a school bus on its side, and that's all we know. Or actually just a bus. We don't even know if it's a school bus.
Overturned or upright.
The bus is on its side, and there's no name on the bus.
Control, KI6MRP, be advised that emergency services are out on other calls. There's going to be delayed response. We'll need a report from ham operators at scene on the number of patients that might be involved and if there's fire involved.
Now, isn't that great? He acknowledged that ham radio operators were on scene and were relaying all the information, and the reason that the emergency services were not able to immediately respond, they were fighting all sorts of fires both on the mainland as well as on Catalina Island. It gets better.
Did we get confirmation that it is a school bus with children as passengers?
Yes, there's approximately 20 kids.
Well, now we got a problem. 20 kids aboard a school bus on its side in a remote area of Catalina. They were trying to evacuate a school, and they evidently turned over while coming down the hill.
That control fire, would you check with our hospital resources and advise them of the number of casualties, and be advised that County Fire is ordering copiers from the mainland at this time?
Now, I don't know if you have it out here, but we do in the West Coast, and that is ham radio operators that will respond to local hospitals to be the ears and eyes for that hospital, because they're going to be tied up with incoming patients. We're transmitting how many patients the hospital can take, and we're doing this all on the ham radio bands to the Incident Command Center. And we used the NIMS course, ICS 100. How many have taken those FEMA courses, ICS 100, 200, and 700? They're on the internet, and that's how we have directed our comms.
That control fire, the initial count was 20 students on board with a driver, unsure of other people that are involved, probably 3 or 4 other adults.
Now, so far we know that the school bus is on its side, the hams are there. What we don't know is how many injured.
Net control Golf Delta, injury count, 1 death, 1 0 immediate, 112 lay, 5 walking wounded. Royal County Fire, 1 DOA, 10 immediates, 12 delayed, and 5 walking wounded. Be advised, we're setting up emergency resources are on scene at this time. We're setting up a triage area. We begin field treatment of the immediates and then transfer them to the hospital for treatment.
Now, that was on the ham radio 2-meter band. As you notice, when that operator who was on a handheld was checking in, his signal was rather noisy, and he meant to say 1 missing, and I think he said GOA, such as gone on arrival, or MIA, and they thought he said DOA. Well, luckily it was not a DOA. Happy to say about that. So we've got it almost all correct. And again, this is on the ham radio 2-meter band. Continuing.
Full bus loaded with kids, and we'll need special extraction equipment, and fast. Fire is spreading on scene.
Oh, now it gets worse. Now the ham radio operator says that the engine compartment is beginning to get in flames, and now he's requesting a fire apparatus. So here, right in the middle of the firestorm, is this school bus, and it's all ham radio that's handling these communications.
Avalon and County Fire responding.
That was a cool dispatcher.
Be advised at this time we have units on scene. They are doing triage on the patients. We are aware of the fire spreading into the structures. Avalon and county volunteers have been activated and responding to scene to handle the fires. We do have county resources en route from the mainland, and the hospital has been notified of the casualty count.
Now, that fellow's not a ham yet, but he should be, because he speaks clearly and quickly, and he is one of the dispatchers at this remote islands fire department. But now things get even more intense.
Copy that. Be advised, the Avalon and county volunteers have responded, and all fire is out at this time.
So they got the fire out of the engine area, but now they need the extraction.
Need some medication for one of our car victims.
Now this is great. Here is one of our ham radio volunteers that's a doctor. And the doctor knew exactly the medication that one of the students needed, and he says it so quickly that the other operator stumbles. And it's happened to all of us where you think they would know. Well, take a listen to what happens.
Yeah, 5 milligrams of amaldehyde acetylate. I spell Alpha, Mike, Lima, Oscar, Delta, India, Papa, India, November, Echo. Next word, Bravo, Echo, Sierra, Yankee, Lima, Alpha, Tango, Echo, 5 milligrams.
Now listen to the response.
Net control, I'm sorry, that was way too fast for me. Could you come again on that, please?
Yeah, that's happened to all of us. And as good trained ham radio operators, we need to read in our minds who we're communicating with. And here was a physician, and he was thinking he was on his med radio, and he said it rather rapidly, but he did use the phonetic alphabet, but this other operator was not prepared. As a good net controller, you should be prepared for almost anything. Even though you might not be able to say it, at least you should be able to write it down. So this continues on now.
Car that we just discovered halfway down the hill at Falls Canyon and Avalon Canyon.
Now we know why the bus overturned on its side. There's a second car that's been involved that they just discovered. Listen to this. She's a cool operator. This ham lady was only licensed about 6 months, and listen to how deliberately she says it like it is.
It is overturned on the south side of Avalon Canyon Drive. 2 occupants are trapped. We need the jaws of life. Both occupants are alive but severely injured. W6KLX.
Those happen to be FEMA personnel coming back from inspecting one of the fire-ravaged areas. They came around the corner, the school bus clipped them, school bus went on its side, and they went down the hill. No one knew it, but one of the ham operators looked over the hill and saw that there was also a vehicle involved as well. Things are heating up now on the side of the hill with the ham operators.
Can you repeat on that medicine name, please? Slower. We weren't able to get it down.
And now here comes that request again for, what was that medication of a few minutes ago?
Hospital is near capacity with ER teams still able to take unrelated cases.
Now, here's a very important ham stationed at the hospital to be able to let those on the scene know that while the hospital is pretty well filled up, they still have ER teams available to take the incoming patients. So we see again the importance of ham radio. By the way, all the cell phones were out. There was no cell phone coverage because of the fire, the Southern California firestorm.
Hospital update is amylazine mesylate medication.
She tried to say it, but I'm afraid she fractured that one.
And at 10 milligrams, not 5 milligrams.
So it points out the importance of ham radio operators as an adjunct to emergency services, whether they are in the police or the fire. These happen to be volunteer hams that were members of the Amateur Radio Aries organization, and they did a fabulous job. Many of them had only been licensed for about 6 months. So the lessons we learned in the California firestorm that displaced 500,000 people and burned 500,000 acres is that you must be able to set up with portable type batteries, must be able to deal with almost anything and everything, know the phonetic alphabet, and be familiar with who you're speaking with to know whether or not you're going to need to repeat things once or twice. Now, some more good news about ham radio that we learned at the Consumer Electronics Show. The Federal Communications Commission Chairman, Mr. Martin, was there, and he talked about ham radio operators about 6 different times. First thing was on broadband over power line, and thanks to your efforts here in this area, it looks like it has been lit. Yeah, no BPL coming to town in this particular area soon. But as the ARRL and other hams will caution, this doesn't mean that they won't start up again soon. The next thing that the FCC talked about was that ham radio operators are continuing to narrowband, continuing to develop new modes of digital communications, and he was sort of prodding some of the other agencies and cellular carriers that they need to look and see what ham radio operators are doing to push the technology envelope. So while the FCC chairman was not a ham himself, he did cause the ham radio service to look very good when it came to the eyes of everybody in the audience. So you should be proud that the Federal Communications Commission is endorsing ham radio for all that we do and all that you do and make ham radio happen. Next item on the Consumer Electronics Show, we saw many, many hams that were there at the CES show, and these were representing some of the large companies from Toshiba to Sharp to Panasonic. The Japanese all had their little Japanese ham radio call signs on. So when someone says, well, what good is this for kids? You can tell the kids getting into ham radio that it could very well land them a job when they're looking over a lot of resumes and JA1XYZ sees that you're also a ham and might hire you over here for another job. So it's still a camaraderie of great radio operators sticking together. I took the AOR spectrum analyzer and I looked at the new televisions, and I'm happy to say the new LCD and the direct TVs and the satellite, all of those type of television technologies are no more noisy than your common older cathode ray tube. Yep. We looked at, it's called the home connection, where they are passing data to turn on lights and switches and things, called the home network, home wireless network. I always get worried when I see this word wireless. And I took my little AOR scanner, and it didn't really begin to register much of anything on broadband noise until you're right up there. It's called the Home Plug Network, and it's an association of those that have the little boxes where you actually send pulses and signals down your power lines to turn different appliances on or off. So again, more good news for ham radio operators. Some of the noisier devices were microwave ovens, thermostat controllers, anything with a running microprocessor. So if you have noise coming out of home electronics, it may not be the television, but actually the microprocessor. Happy to say that computers are getting quieter and quieter. They have some new fans that are brushless going into computers that will help minimize the noise. So I think that we're going to be finding that our noise floor, when we tune across HF, is going to be a lot less free. It's going to be more free with a lot less birdies showing up on some of the different ham radio bands. More good news. Say goodbye to 23 and welcome to 24. We don't know if it's absolutely official, as Alan was saying, but it looks like we're finally going to be coming up on the new solar cycle 24. And that means more great band conditions on the higher bands, 10 and 15 and 20, and things will continue to get better and better from our summer and winter doldrums. So welcome to Solar Cycle 24. Brand new technicians, did you know that they probably don't know, new technician, no-code operators, that they have privileges on the 10-meter band as well as all of their VHF and UHF privileges. So if you have a new technician in town, tell them to go out and buy that $600 or $700 radio and come up on the air on 28.3 to 28.5 or data down to 28.1 or 2. So new techs do have 10 meters, 28.3 to 28.5, and that's very good news there. Least expensive 100-watt, 100-channel radio, anybody know? We saw one at the CES show. The company was not actually displaying, but the radio was there for demonstration purposes. The ICOM 718. ICOM 718 sells, seen selling at Amateur Electronics Supply for $4.99. Can you believe that? 100 watts, 100 channels, comes with DSP and the AF. Quite a nice radio for the beginning operator, less than $500. It was probably on special, so maybe it's $5.25. But good news there. What's going to happen to Yaesu? Motorola buys Yaesu, and they bought them not for the ham line, but they bought them for the land mobile line. Well, I can tell you right now that it looks like ham radio will survive. And remember, Yaesu is also the same as Vertex Standard, the marine radios. So the marine radio division figures it's in pretty good shape. They'll just sort of let it do its thing. And Dennis Machenbacher of the ham radio division, who was formerly with the ARRL, says that things look good in his eyes, that things will continue as normal. How many have Yaesu equipment? Yeah, if you got Yaesu equipment, a very good opportunity to rest assured that they'll be around and their service will be around and so on. Kenwood, well, we don't see much of Kenwood, but I don't see my GPS anymore, so just like Southern California, no, I know. Anyway, Phil Parton of Kenwood says, oh yeah, we're still out there. They've gone from the TS 700 to the 710. Steve's trying to figure out a way to rewire his, or actually replumb his dash. Just rip that dashboard out, Steve, and you can work in that new 710. But Kenwood has teamed up with AvMap and doing the APRS. And I was hoping, 2 years ago we were hoping for it, they were going to come out with a handheld with embedded GPS. Remember I saw that on the horizon? Nope, not yet. Land mobile radios have them. Marine radios, 2 of them have an embedded GPS and a handheld, but Kenwood still opts to do that as a separate entity. So still no handheld with a built-in GPS yet. That's too bad. And handhelds are getting smaller. How many have the new small little teeny little handhelds? Yeah. The service department says the greatest problem they have with little tiny ones from Yaesu is they come in and they smell like potty water because someone leans over to flush and they fall out and end up in the thing. But as a good ham, whenever we have a brand new piece of equipment and we ruin it, you never tell them that. You just send it back going, I don't know, it was just dead out of the box. Right, it's like dripping, yeah, right, very good. How many tried to modify their handheld, right? Modify to do things that it wasn't supposed to do? Or maybe the mobile, how about that ICOM 7000 for watching television? Is that fun while going down the expressway, watching TV on that thing? How many modified a radio and it failed horribly? That's the time to put it back in the box and send it back to the manufacturer going, I don't know, it's just dead out of the box. They can tell by the pinched wires that there's a mod that's gone wrong. The best place to look up mods is DK, or mods.dk. It's a website, mods.dk, Delta Kilo, from DK Land, and they have every modification known to mankind and more. And these are usually ones that have been successful, and they've got photographs. You know, no longer can you on a schematic diagram relate to where it is on the board. Now they have photos with little arrows, you know, saying clip this out. And I'll tell you, on some of these radios, it's getting harder to mod them. Now, the reason I say modification is on VHF handhelds out on the West Coast, in an emergency, you can use any radio. So we mod it so it'll go up to VHF 156.8, channel 16, Coast Guard Distress. That's on our little 2-meter radios. Plus, it's fun to screw around with those radios and end up with 100 watts on FRS when everybody's only about a half of one. Oh, family radio service. I love this. Now you can equate range on a handheld by how much it costs. They have FRS radios. A pair of them, $20, and it goes like 0.2 of a mile. A pair of them for $40, and they go 0.4 of a mile. A pair of them for $100, they go 1 mile. It was amazing. They all put out the same amount of power, 500 milliwatts on UHF, 14 channels interstitial. Now they're 22 channels. But it was fun to see the range wars where the more expensive ones would go 18, 22, 25 mile range. Right, okay. So you still see a lot of that going on down in the consumer marketplace. So wrapping it up, it looks like we've got a good year ahead for ham radio. How many plan to take the extra class test soon? Yeah, do it before July 1st. Yeah, Bernie will tell you. He and I have been looking at the new pool. Do it before July 1st. What they did with the extra, right now you're studying a pool of about 800 questions. They're going to take about 100 of those and flush them, and then add about 100 new ones on digital technology that are sort of bone crushers, and they're going to be formidable. But Bernie, where's Bernie? There he is. Bernie's going to have an inside loop on the question pool, so if you want to see it first, get together with him. You've already passed all that stuff, so yeah, he used to have a full head of dark hair, and like me, that's what happens when we work over that. The technician won't change for another 2 years. Then general will change after that. So the only one changing this year is extra class on July 1st. Oh, there's no more code. No. There's no more code test. The elimination of the code test last February did something that I anticipated, but a lot of folks didn't believe, and that is it caused a lot more people to say, hey, code's fun as long as you don't have to take a damn test to get through it. So more and more folks are learning the code, and we are just delighted because we hear more folks on the air. So the elimination of the code test in no way has dampened the enthusiasm for Morse code. That's the good news there. All right, a couple last items. Years and years and years ago, Barry Goldwater set up a huge antenna, much like yours, in a next-door neighbor, and I did some work aboard his boat. And Barry gave me a ham stamp, and this particular one came from a collection I have of some of his gear. And I'm going to turn it over to the hall, and this was given to me by Barry Goldwater. I'm going to give it to Steve. Now make sure it gets down in there in the Hall of Science. But long before you were born, Steve, it was a 5-cent stamp. Remember when Alaska had the earthquake back in, when was that, 60 or 50 or Dark Ages or the Ice Age? But anyway, whenever postage was 5 cents. But I'm going to pass this on to the Hall of Science, and this comes from the collection of Barry Goldwater. And I just want to say that what you do, well, thanks to Barry, what you do on Wednesday through Sunday is a huge job. How many actively work that station Wednesday through Sunday? Let me see your hands. All right. You are making ham radio happen. For the rest of us, let's try and pitch in and maybe take a few hours, but this is so important. You have a worldwide setting here. Huge antenna on the roof and a built-in crowd that comes every day. And I know it's tough to maintain that station by operating, but continue to do it, because when I hear it on the air from Sixland, it sounds good. So let's make ham radio happen this year. I want to thank you all for this huge turnout. You in the room will make ham radio happen because of your sincere interest to turn out on a cold night and hear what's happening on the West Coast. I'll tell you one thing, emergency comms is still the benchmark of ham radio. So let's hope that we have a quiet year. Let's hope that the bands pick up for Solar Cycle 24. And if they don't, Alan will be there to stir them up, and Steve will zoom them up with his supercar. And thank you again all for making a special trip out tonight for this different meeting time than usual. Alan? Thank you.
It's live on the web.
On our site.
On our site.
So Rob, what you got there?
We have a live webcam for our meeting tonight.
Sweet.
You know what, I'm going to pull the boy.
So everybody's going to be looking at it right as we speak.
20-second delay.
Nice. That's not bad.
15, 20 seconds.
Cool.